Hello and welcome to another vlog episode. I hope that you're doing well. I hope that your week is coming together quite nicely. I thought to come on here to talk a little bit more about what is happening at the moment with Twitter now. If you're a follower of the social media space, you will know that there's a lot happening within the Twitter verse. There's been a lot happening for a while, to be honest, to be fair. But I think it's becoming clearer and clearer that the model that Twitter is going to adopt for monetization for the near future or the far future, if Twitter actually survives that long, is going to be subscriptions. We've seen previously free sort of add-on platforms like TweetDeck. TweetDeck has been this lovely platform for people who work on particularly multiple accounts, Twitter accounts, and want to manage them and be able to schedule content, post content on various platforms simultaneously. Now, that was previously a free space or a free platform, but it appears that Twitter is now, going to take hold of all these add-ons that help make Twitter a better place and put them into their subscription model. So if you want to get access to something like TweetDeck, you will need a subscription to be able to use this previously free platform. Now, this is really interesting because, all social media platforms at their core, their aim is not to give us a space to connect and be happy. That's the idealistic way of thinking about it. I think, at the heart of it, I suppose, all entrepreneurs want to heighten human experiences, but then they also want to make money. And so at the core of every social media company's ethos is to make money. Every big social media company, at least. And so, when one thinks about the monetization policies of different platforms, it's really interesting to see how Twitter is sort of pulling away from the kind of agreed norm of how social media platforms make money, and is now having this very overt perspective where it's like, hey, if you want a blue tick, pay for it. If you want access to TweetDeck, pay for it. All these kinds of things that are now becoming more and more a feature of Twitter. If you want long form tweets, pay for it. Twitter Blue subscription, that's the model that they're going with at the moment. And when you look at other big platforms like Facebook, you notice that, it's the same impetus to make money, but a very different way of doing it. Now, the way that Facebook does it, has usually done it, is to sell data to advertisers. So as they say popularly, if you get something free, if something is free, know that you are the product, which basically means that if anything is being offered to you for free by a large corporate, know that they're selling something about you to someone. And so this we know about Facebook. We know that all the data that we provide, all the content that we provide, enables Facebook to sell this data to advertisers who want to sell us things. And so they have such finely tuned data sets of demographic profiles, of information about all of us, because we've given it so freely to them. And that is what they're able to sell to advertisers. Now, that's one of the monetization or revenue streams that Meta or Facebook has been using over the years. And so, there's these different ways, sponsored content, advertising, all these things that usually manifest in the ways that social media companies try to make money from us. So this is quite different in that it is overt. It is basically cutting the middleman out. There is no advertiser. There are advertisers that Twitter would obviously try to get to pay to advertise on Twitter, and we've seen sponsored content on Twitter. But this is essentially cutting the middleman out and saying, we are directly asking you to pay for something to have space on the platform, which is, I would say, a little bit precarious. I think, especially when we note that social media is going through this decline in general, people are not connecting in the ways they used to. Millennials are getting older, so they do not share as much as they used to. They have families, they have bills to pay. So, the whole connection trajectory is kind of going down. People are now, social media companies are depending on influencers and content creators to really push content now. And so when you have that going on, and then you have a company that's trying to introduce a subscription model, it seems counterintuitive. It seems out of sync with what's going on in the greater social media terrain. But then I think another really interesting thing to think about is how people generally, and this is my experience, I will not universalize my experiences of engaging with people, but I will say for the people that I have engaged with over my many years of research and engagement on the social media, in social media spaces, most people do not mind that their data is being used to make profit from them. Most people are, the impetus to connect is bigger than the cost of someone having access to your data and using it to sell things to you. And so that is something that has generally, for people who are perhaps, not as politically oriented, and I don't say that to be demeaning, I say that to mean that people who are not, perhaps as politicized around how social media and capitalism and structures of power work, and don't mind, some people are like, hey, this is the system. To play the game, you have to lose something or you have to pay something. And if it's my data, that's fine. And there's also people who are like, well, my data is not that exciting anyway. So even if a company is harvesting everything I've said, all my photographs, all the information about what I do, what I like, what I eat, where I work, it doesn't matter, because in the great scheme of life, I'm not ever going to try to be the president of my country or a big somebody in society. So it doesn't matter if someone has all my data. So that is generally been the trade-off that people are more likely to make. Their data is more likely to, people are more likely to feel safe with giving their data to a company than their money. Now, I find that very interesting. If you sit down and think about it, the fact that people are so up in arms about what's happening right now with Twitter is because essentially we're going to have to pay something to have access to the things that were previously free to us. However, when we think about our data as users, our data is not as important. If you know that a social media company is using your data to make its profit, you're likely to be more comfortable with that than being asked by the social media company to pay to have access to it. And that's saying a lot about how we value our data and also how we value ourselves, because essentially our data is ourselves. The things that we share, the thoughts, the experiences, the connections, the engagements, everything that we bring to social media. Beyond, of course, the curation, we all curate our lives. We make ourselves seem either more perfect or less perfect than we are, because, we have a storyline that we have to continue in our social media narrative. However, with all that said, with the curation, with the censorship, with the, airbrushing and filters and all that, the fact that you are more likely to bargain with the content of who you are versus money is saying something about how disenfranchised we are. We are living in a world where the people with money and control and power dictate the rules of the game. And if the rules of the game say, this is what I have to give, my labor, my time, my energy, because it is labor and time and energy. We do labor for social media companies by producing content for free. We literally do labor for these companies, because the trade-off is that they give us the capacity to connect. They give us the capacity to be seen, to be viewed, to have experiences. But that is a sign of how disenfranchising this world is that I would rather go on a platform and give it all I have. But when they ask for something that is monetary, that's when the alarm goes on, because money makes the world go round. Money makes the world go round. Money is the currency of life. And so when someone says, pay $10 a month or whatever it is for this subscription, that's more harmful. That rings more of an alarm bell than give me your data. And I like to think about that in the context of what's going on with Twitter, beyond obviously the fact that there are a lot of people who cannot afford those subscriptions. There's people who were getting so much traction from all these Twitter platform spaces, add-ons, etc., who now will be disenfranchised because they couldn't anyway pay those subscriptions. But for a lot of people who could pay those subscriptions, there is a resistance or a hesitance, firstly, to pay money, because anything that entails us giving our money makes us feel suspicious a lot of the times, but also to be paying money to be on a platform that is owned by the richest person in the world feels, it feels like a kick in the throat. You are, just a person, a pawn in the system, and the people who control the system, the richest of the rich, are still asking for your money. So I think that's one thing as well that is very off-putting for a lot of people. But all of this is just really fascinating to think about when we think about how power works and how we trade certain things with power. How do you value the content? How would we value? Let's say you sat down and you harvested all your data from whatever platform, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you've been for the longest time, and you made a book of it. Your comments, your likes, the things you shared, all the things you've done on social media. How would you value that data? Would that data measure up with if every platform had a subscription model and you'd been paying the subscription model, however much the value of the subscription would have been for however long you've been on this platform? Which is more valuable? Which is the more valuable loss or gain for the company? Is it your money or is it your life experiences? And I think a lot of people would say, well, my life experiences aren't that valuable. If I paid money, it would feel like a bigger pinch to my pocket. And that's just saying a lot about society and the world, that as long as something is monetary, it has a higher value. And I think anyone who has a politics that is questioning about power and money and about systems, the emancipatory way of looking at things is as the value. Every human being, in every human being, there is a value, and our value is higher than our salaries and what we do and what we are told our value is through a paycheck or a subscription model or whatever it is that we're doing in this world, which is so monetarily based. That's neither here nor there. It's not to say that's an answer. It's more of a provocation to think a little bit more deeply about what this Twitter moment signals and what it would mean if all social media companies introduce subscription models. I don't think many of them would survive, because we are more likely and more comfortable giving our content than our money. I'll leave you with that thought, and I look forward to hearing back your own feedback about what you think is happening, what you think about subscription models, what you think about power dynamics, given the increasing disenfranchisement of audiences and populations. You can send a tweet out at Native Podcast. You can send an email, info@digitallynativepodcast.com. Or you can get us on Facebook or on LinkedIn on the pages, which are the Digitally Native Podcast with Fungai Machirori. I really look forward to hearing from you. I really hope that you are having a great week and that you will continue to have a great week, and that you will be well. Thank you for tuning in.